Alright everybody, it is time for yet another ranking where I do not only my top 10, but also 5 honorable mentions and participation trophies, movies that are okay and worth checking out so you can form your own opinion. Maybe they would make your top 10. And I also talk about 5 bottom of the barrel shit films, my 5 dishonorable mentions. And yes, that's how it goes. You get it? Alright, somebody was confused in my last video. I guess I didn't clarify enough what the formula was. 10, top 10, 5 honorable mentions, some shout outs, and also my 5 dishonorable mentions. And at the very end, I'll let you know what else I watched that didn't make my list at all, so that you'll know that I did, in fact, watch it. Because some of you like to comment, like, well, I didn't see this movie on your list. Did you watch it? I'll let you know. So, I watched over 40 movies for this month. For this year, 1985, and let's get into the worst of the year, 1985. What is the worst movie of 1985? It's not really a movie. It's only like 40 minutes long, and this is actually what torture porn looks like. And it's Guinea Pig, Devil's Experiment, and I think there's another movie that came out this year with the same title, Guinea Pig, something else. I didn't look into it because I didn't like this movie. What this movie is, I'll just read it right here. This is found footage torture porn with no plot, no script, no score, and a modicum of dialogue. Like, there's no one talking in this movie. I can sum up everything that happens in this movie in less than a minute. Here we go. Here's what happens in the movie. So this woman, she gets slapped 100 times, and they count for you, so you know. She gets pushed around and kicked, spun around to the point of feeling nauseous and starts throwing up. She's forced to listen to loud noises for a whole day, and she gets her skin pinched tightly with pliers, her arms are burned with boiling water, she's covered in maggots and bloody chunks of God knows what, and her hand is smashed with a sledgehammer, and then she's also hung in some netting for a while, just starving, and then her eye is pierced with a needle. The end. There you go. Worst movie of the year, and probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen. Fuck this movie. Next up, we have a shot-on-video movie called Blood Cult. This movie is just boring as hell. I could not pay attention to what was going on, and really nothing was going on. It's some kind of cult. It's boring as hell. Fuck. It was painful. I had to pay to watch this, so that's extra salt in my wounds. That just hurt knowing that I paid for this fucking movie. It's a $25,000 budget, and that's not an excuse to suck this much. Watch The Battery, which was made for like $5,000. That's a much better movie. All right, as long as the script works, it doesn't matter what the budget is, you can make it work. All right, so budget is no excuse for why this movie sucks so hard. This movie is just so poorly shot. It has like this weird, like looking through a telescope frame around the, like it looks like you're looking through a telescope. There's like black around. You can see people holding the boom mics. Usually you see just the boom mic, but in this movie you see the guy holding it too. So it's that bad. It's fucking awful. The only thing I'll give it, it has some decent, halfway decent aftermath score. Next up is Hard Rock Zombies. This movie feels like a feature-length music video with annoying, repetitive songs and really like no script. This movie features robotic-like zombies, Nazi midgets, no gore, and just awful characters and no one to latch onto. Next up is a Wes Craven movie called The Hills Have Eyes Part 2. This is basically Friday the 13th meets Rambo First Blood in the desert. This movie attempts continuity, but is unnecessary and fails. They should have brought back that character from the first one and actually used him throughout. A dog in this movie has a flashback, and this has some of the worst cinematography ever. It's so poorly lit, I can't see shit. And the bad guys in this movie are not scary or entertaining. These characters suck. The dialogue sucks. It feels like Wes had like no money or imagination with this movie. Like, he just didn't care. This was just a project to him. Like, just make it, give me my paycheck, and I'll move on to something else. Like, he put no passion into this movie. Next up is another shot-on-video movie by the same director, I believe, as Blood Cult, and that is The Ripper, starring Tom Savini in the last 5 minutes as the Ripper himself. This is, again, shot-on-video garbage that looks awful. The transfer on Amazon is dreadful. The acting is atrocious. The script is generic and terrible, and yeah, it's just pretty bad. You got cheesy love music, and just too long of dance montages in the beginning that just are painful to get through. You got good gore in the movie, and I'm I'm not even sure if Tom Savini did it. I don't think he gets a credit for it, but whoever did the gore in this one, that's the best part of the movie. It's just seeing people getting disemboweled. Other than that, this movie is a snooze fest. Do not ever watch it. Now that I've taken out the trash, let's talk about some participation trophies, movies that are worth seeking out, but just weren't good enough to make my top 10. Underworld. When high-class hooker Nicole is kidnapped from her brothel, rich businessman Hugo Motherskill hires her ex-love Roy Bain to find her. Hellhole. An unlucky woman's mother is murdered by a scarf-wielding killer named Silk, leaving the woman injured, traumatized, and suffering from amnesia. She's committed to a mental hospital where Silk follows her, looking for the papers he was trying to get from her mother. Blackout. A police officer suspects that a local husband and father who has recently undergone facial surgery because of injuries received in a car accident is in reality the same man who committed a quadruple murder several years before. Once Bitten. Mark wants to lose his virginity, but his girlfriend wants to wait. Unfortunately for both of them, a 400-year-old vampire countess needs to turn a virgin into a vampire before Halloween in order to preserve her own youthful appearance. Warning sign. An accident occurs in an ultra-secret government biological weapons laboratory spreading a sinister bacteria. The Boys Next Door. Roy and Bo leave their small town the weekend after graduation for a short road trip to LA. Soon they find themselves lashing out and leaving a trail of bodies behind them. Cemetery of Terror. A professor suspects that a vicious killer may have discovered a way to return from the grave and continue his violent spree. Alright, top 10 everybody. Let's kick off number 10 with a Dario Argento movie, and that is Phenomena. A young girl with an amazing ability to communicate with insects is transferred to an exclusive Swiss boarding school, where her unusual capability might help solve a string of murders. This movie is just freaking insane. It's got one of the craziest Argento third acts. This movie kind of has a Suspiria-like setting, a all-girls school, and we got a woman who can communicate with insects, and the insects help her solve a murder mystery with Donald Pleasance, who's an entomologist. He studies insects along with his chimpanzee sidekick friend, who gets revenge in the last reel of the movie. It's just freaking hysterical at times how weird this movie is. It's got some good gore, some really cool what the fuck moments in it. You got Jennifer Connelly here, and of course Donald Pleasance, and it's just batshit. So that's why I like it. I don't like the music choices in this movie. It feels like it's trying to appeal to the younger crowd at the time. All the rock and roll, Iron Maiden shit in this movie. It feels so out of place and just doesn't work for me. They should have taken that out and put more of a traditional horror score in here, Goblin or something. But all that rock and roll stuff just took me out of it. I did not like that. And there's also like missing dubbing in the movie where it would go from English to Italian and there was no subtitles, so I was lost. I didn't know what the hell was being said, so that was a bummer. Not necessarily the film's fault, just what transfer I was watching. And the movie drags at times. It's not a very quickly paced movie. It's way more leisurely paced, so that's also why it's all the way down here at number 10, but still a wild concept and gory Argento-styled slasher murder mystery. Next up is House. Roger Cobb moves into a new house and tries to work on a novel based on his experiences in the Vietnam War. Strange things start happening around him, little things at first, but as they become more frequent, Cobb becomes aware that the house resents his presence. This is a movie that I have probably the most nostalgia for on this list, so you're probably thinking, well, why isn't it higher? Because on rewatch, it just didn't age that well for me, and it's still a good movie, but it just wasn't as good as when I was a kid. But yeah, I've seen this one probably the most out of all these movies. I think this movie has a really cool concept, very unique. I like all the portal idea, and I like the neighbor character and just their dynamic together. The nosy neighbor with Roger Cobb, just their dialogue together. Lots of good humor here. It's a good comedy horror blend, and just the house setting is really cool looking and just awesome iconic house. And it's got Kane Hodder in it. You got Harry Manfred as a stunt person, and you got Harry Manfredini doing the music. So I like the score in here. Lots of Friday the 13th connections, and it's just a fun horror movie, one that you could actually watch with the kids because it's got that kind of kid-friendly tone to it. Next up, from the director of Alligator and Cujo, written by Stephen King, is an anthology called Cat's Eye. 3 short stories are linked by a stray cat that roams from one tale to the next in this creepy triptych. This was a first time watch, and I really liked all 3 segments in the movie. And we got a cat that kind of ties each of the stories together, and then the cat becomes like the main character in the third story and a hero. So I really like that. You got Drew Barrymore in here, you got James Woods, you got a great cast. The first story about quitting smoking, and I think that's just a fun, silly concept. And I love James Woods. He's one of my favorite actors, so I really like that segment. And then the second one is more terrifying to me as someone with a fear of heights. This one really, you know, taps into that fear of heights. If you are afraid of heights, you're gonna love this second story. And the third story is like a troll monster hiding in the walls, trying to attack Drew Barrymore and take her soul in her sleep or something. That one's very silly. Again, this is another movie just like House that you could actually watch with the kids because it's definitely more child friendly. It's not violent, it's not gory, there's no sex, hardly any swearing. It's more for the family. This is family horror, if you ask me. But some really impressive effects, especially in that third story. And kudos to the person who trained the cat in this movie because they made the cat do some really cool tricks. So, just a fun movie overall. Check it out. Cat's Eye. Number 7 is a movie I already reviewed for a patron, and that is Larry Cohen's The Stuff. An industrial saboteur is hired to investigate a popular new product called The Stuff, a new dessert product that is blowing ice cream sales out of the water. Nobody knows how it's made or what's in it, but people are lining up to buy it. The only thing I didn't really care for in this movie is some of the effects in this movie don't age well, like the green screen visual effects when that kid's like in the back of that truck and you see the stuff in the background. Some of those effects just do not age, and I wish they would focus more on the main adult characters, not the kid. I felt like the whole kid storyline was a little unnecessary. I feel like you could have just focused on the adults and focus on their relationship and, you know, them. It would have worked better for me. And I like the commentary of this movie on, you know, commercialism and big tobacco companies, addiction, you know, these companies just feeding you shit. They don't even know what's in it, but it makes people addicted and just takes over them. And in this movie, quite literally. And you got some fun, quirky characters, some great dialogue. I love the actor Moriarty, however you say his name. Is it Michael Moriarty? I like him in this movie. So you got some good characters, good dialogue. I think the story builds at a great pace, and it's just really fun. It's very silly as hell. So The Stuff is my number 7. Number 6 goes to another Stephen King film, and that is Silver Bullet. During a search, a mysterious hairy creature is observed. This strange appearance is noticed once a month. People lock themselves up at night, but there's one boy who's still outside. This is a unique werewolf movie that centers around a handicapped kid in one of the coolest wheelchairs ever in a small town, and I really like the small town setting. Once again, you got really great characters. I like Gary Busey, and I like his relationship with Corey Haim's character. He's the cool uncle who's telling dirty jokes and it just feels like he's his nephew's best friend. Just really like their chemistry together. The werewolf costume, it looked like a man in a suit at times. They had to use a lot of extreme close-up shots to avoid showing the whole thing because they weren't impressed with it. They didn't like it. And I don't like it when you do finally see the whole thing. Not crazy about the look of the werewolf, but I like that this movie's more like a slasher. They think there's a maniac on the loose, not a werewolf, and it's shot like a slasher. It feels like one. If you just replace the fact that it's a werewolf with a human character who's just a psychomaniac, it very much plays out like a slasher. Just POV, stalking in the woods. I wish that the third act, the final confrontation, would have been stretched out a bit more, a little bit more climactic. It kind of peters out very quickly, but it was still a fun ride. I really enjoy it. Not one I grew up with. This was my second watch. Just watched it for the first time last year, and now I got it on Blu-ray, and I will continue to watch it again and again because I think it's a great underrated werewolf movie. And number 5, coincidentally enough, I didn't do it on purpose. I'm wearing the shirt. Friday the 13th, Part 5. A New Beginning. Homicidal maniac Jason returns from the grave to cause more bloody mayhem. Well, we know that's not true. Young Tommy may have escaped from Crystal Lake, but he's still haunted by the gruesome events that happened there. This movie is just sleazy fun, told at a breakneck pace with quotable characters, just quirky characters and dialogue that I adore. So many of them that it's just, the list doesn't end. They're all fantastic. It has the most kills of the franchise. You got the Road Flare kill, the Shears kill, the Belt kill. A lot of them stand out. They're great. It's just cut by the MPAA, unfortunately, but it's also got not only the most kills, but the most nudity as well. Deborah Sue Voorhees and her goodies. Who doesn't like that? I mean, this movie is just fun as hell. Love it so much. Reggie the Reckless. I wish that they would have done something different with the mystery to the film. I like that they went back to the whole whodunit approach that the first one took, but it's a very poorly written and executed mystery. They don't really create a lot of red herrings. You're just supposed to think it's Tommy the whole time, but then you see Roy looking at the camera the way he does, all menacing like and evil. It's just, that was a bad shot in the movie. They shouldn't have done that. They should have made it Vic. It would have made it way better. Or Tommy. Tommy or Vic, not the ambulance driver. But yeah, so just lots of great cast, great characters, just so much fun. Friday the 13th Part 5. Underrated sequel in this great franchise. Next up is a film by Tom Holland, who would later direct Child's Play, and that is Fright Night. Nobody believes teenager Charlie Brewster when he discovers that his suave new neighbor, Jerry Dandridge, is a vampire. This is just an outstanding vampire movie with great performances by Chris Sarandon, who would be in Child's Play, and Mr. what's his name? McDowell? Roddy McDowell. I think they're both terrific in this movie. Some of the effects might look a bit dated in a couple of moments, but the transformation with the werewolf thing later on, there's a werewolf in here, that was pretty cool. And even when the guy's like melting towards the end, that guy, very good stuff. I like the nod to Peter Cushing and Vincent Price, with the main guy in here being called Peter Vincent. So I thought that was cool. Like the subtle nods to horror alumni. I like the gothic mansion in this movie with the cloud of like supernatural green fog that's over it towards the end. Like just a perfect setting, and just the way it looks. The atmosphere of the movie is great. It only slows down once they go to that club scene. I feel like that drags out a little too long. They should have trimmed some of the fat out of there. Great movie. One of the best vampire movies out there. So Fright Night is my number 4. Oh, and quick shout out to user 1428XAVI. So this was his favorite from 1985. Number 3 goes to a Lamberto Bava movie. My first time watching it, and it blew me away. It was one of the first movies I watched this month for this ranking, and that is Demons. A group of people are trapped in a West Berlin movie theater infested with ravenous demons who proceed to kill and possess the humans one by one, thereby multiplying their numbers. This is basically Evil Dead in a movie theater with plenty of satisfying gore effects that are just absolutely phenomenal and just bloody as hell. I loved every minute of it. Oh my gosh, it was great. You got silly dialogue and character writing in here that's just absurd, that I just laughed at, and it adds charm to the movie. You got like Fulci level violence with like Argento style, like the aesthetic and some of the lighting, the cinematography in this movie. It looks good. The soundtrack kicks ass, and you got a freaking guy on a dirt bike in a movie theater chopping off heads with a samurai sword. Nothing else to say. I mean, that should sell it right there. Terrific movie. And shout out to Jeanette Spevik, who said that this was their favorite movie of 1985. Number 2 goes to Stuart Gordon's Reanimator. A dedicated student at a medical college and his girlfriend become involved in a bizarre experiment centering around the reanimation of dead tissue when an odd new student arrives on campus. This is an insane blast of just impressive gore effects and low-budget filmmaking done right. You got Barbara Crampton, who's stunning as always, and she leaves nothing to the imagination. And you got iconic characters with Herbert West and his buddy, played by Bruce Abbott, Dr. Kane, and just his arc from beginning to end, and him having to save his girlfriend at the end. He wants to bring her back. Such a sad ending, and such a freaking chaotic third act. And I love the green reagent, the way it looks. It's just cool. It's very comical, but not like cringy. It's not too over the top, just enough. And some people don't like that this movie rips off the score from Psycho, but I love that it does that. I like the music. I love the theme music during the opening credits. in the music throughout. I love it, seeing the guy walk around with a severed head in front of him the whole time. That's just funny stuff, and it's just such a great movie. So iconic, so many great lines and just great characters, lots of gore. It's wild, bonkers. I just freaking can't get enough of this movie. I've seen it multiple times now, and I've already reviewed it, so you can check out that review if you want. And shout out to Justin Smith, who chose this as his favorite. Now let's go into 5 honorable mentions before we get to my number 1. I'm sure you know what it is. Maybe you don't. Who knows? But number 5 of my 5 honorable mentions is a TV movie by Jack Bender, who made Child's Play 3, a very underrated sequel that's amazing. And that movie by Jack Bender is The Midnight Hour. Add this to your yearly Halloween movie collection, movies that you watch around Halloween, because it's perfect. It's all on Halloween. You got kids going to a cemetery with that great cemetery atmosphere, the fog, all the tombstones with the fog rolling over them. I love the aesthetic of this film. I'm a sucker for it. And it definitely has that made-for-TV quality to it, but it doesn't hurt the film in my opinion. You got some good characters here. I like the main couple in the movie. He falls in love with this dead cheerleader, and you even got like a cameo by Kurtwood Smith. I love him as an actor. That 70s show, dumbass. Love him. I love seeing him in here. And you even have the Halloween 3 skeleton mask in this movie. It looks identical. If it's not, I'll be shocked. Next up is a kind of Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer movie, but before that movie, and that is Confessions of a Serial Killer. This movie stars the guy who was like a production designer for films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He plays the lead psychopath in this movie, who I think he does a good job playing this emotionless, just very cold-hearted, just soulless man who just kills to kill. He has no remorse at all. He is despicable, and this movie is very dark and disturbing at times. I think the score is very intense, and the movie overall is just unsettling at times and just suspenseful. So just check it out. It's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. And he did the production for Reanimator, which I was just talking about not too long ago, and Hills Have Eyes. So yeah, he did production design work for a lot of films. So this movie, just what it does lack is, good style and atmosphere, stuff that I like. No real gore or practical effects, rewatchability. It's just a disturbing movie about a serial killer, and it's told in flashbacks. So it's got that narrative, him in the police station retelling events, so you know where it's all going to lead. So yeah, but still very disturbing, worth seeking out once. So check it out on YouTube. Next up is controversial, because this is a movie that most people would put as number 1 or in their top 5 at least. This isn't in my list at all, top 10, and that is George Romero's Day of the Dead. What I will give this movie is Tom Savini's terrific, groundbreaking effects. Like, this is some of his best work, if not his best, and this set the bar for zombie movies. Like, this is what gore you should expect from now on from zombie movies. People getting ripped apart, and they make these characters so obnoxious and annoying that it's extra cathartic when they do get ripped apart. You're like, yes! Kill that despicable, racist piece of shit who's constantly yelling and hackling like a hyena at his own fucking jokes. Like, that's what weighed this movie down for me, was the characters. I didn't like anybody, not even the protagonist. I didn't care for anybody in this movie. I didn't like the relationship, if you can call it that. I don't know what was going on between the main girl and her boyfriend. It just starts automatically sour between them. We never get to see them happy together. And there's just things that I think should have been done better with those characters, the protagonists. I didn't like them. I didn't connect with them. The best actor and the best character in this movie is a zombie. Bud, or Bub. Is it Bud or Bub? I couldn't really hear what they were saying. It sounded like Bud at times, and then it sounded like Bub, but he's the best actor and the best character in this movie. I like everything with that character and what they were doing there. That was different, especially at the time, for zombie movies to be teaching them tricks and stuff like dogs. Like, I thought that stuff was cool. And yeah, so just Greg Nicotero in here also. I like that. And just the effects overall is what really saves this movie for me. It's what put it on this list, really, because without gore in this movie, I don't think it would be on this list at all. And shout out to Roy Spahn, who said that this was his favorite from 1985. Number 12 is a sci-fi horror movie called Life Force. This was written by Dan O'Bannon, who did Return of the Living Dead, and this was directed by Tobe Hooper, who did The Funhouse and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all kinds of stuff. And this movie is just weird as hell. It's a little too long, should have been trimmed down some, but some of the effects might not age well today, especially the more CGI visual stuff in space, like the space shots. But I think they're actually pretty decent for the time. This movie features a beautiful naked alien woman walking around sucking the life out of men. What's not to like about that? I like that this movie is played so serious with such goofy effects and goofy moments in it, but it's all very serious, and I think that just adds charm to the movie. It's got a very high production value to it. This movie had a huge budget, probably the biggest budget of any movie this year. The last honorable mention here is A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, even though it deviates a little too far from the mythos and rules of the original, and it's a bit messy at times with the script, it's still a fun mess that offers a lot more practical effects and some of the best Freddy lines in the franchise. And it's got the best Freddy look to me. I wish they would have used the glove more. I don't like that it just came out of his fingers, and I wish they would have used the glove a lot more. It's such an iconic weapon, and I like Christopher Young's score in the movie. I think it's really sinister and dark. This movie is a lot darker than the first one. The Freddy we get in this one's darker and creepier looking. I don't care for Lisa as a character. I wish their relationship would have been written better. Her acting's not that great, but Mark Patton I think is terrific as Jesse, and he sweats a whole lot. But I think he actually gives a really good performance, and the opening dream sequence is pretty cool. There's some nightmarish imagery in here. I wish there was more of that. Yeah, there's the gay undertones in the movie, but that doesn't hurt the movie for me, but it's definitely there, and it's not subtle at all. But that just kind of adds charm to the movie. And shout out to Mikey Brass and Chongo Chulupa, who picked this as their number one. Number one goes to Return of the Living Dead. When a bumbling pair of employees at a medical supply warehouse accidentally release a deadly gas into the air, the vapors cause the dead to reanimate as they go on a rampage seeking their favorite food, brains. This is one of the first comedic zombie movies that does the humor just right. It's perfect, with a kick-ass soundtrack and awesome characters, a great cast, so many quotable lines, very fast-paced, and some good gore here and there. Not a whole lot of it. It's not Day of the Dead gore, but we get some good gore here. Once again, just like Reanimator, this is low-budget filmmaking done right. I love that unconventional zombies that we have here that talk and run. Zombies at this point, they never really ran. This was kind of new, and they say words, they talk about brains and shit. It's just so fun. This is one of the most rewatchable movies ever made, with just great characters. You got James Karen from Poltergeist. You got Tom freaking Jarvis from Jason Lives in here. You got Demon from Friday the 13th Part 5. And Vic from that same movie. You got Trash, played by Linnea Quigley, and that whole dance she does. It's just highly entertaining, quick pace, over-the-top fun with my kind of zombies that run. I like fast-paced zombies, and I like fast-paced movies, and I love quotable, quirky characters, and this just delivers on everything. And you got iconic zombies, you got Tar Man. It's just a phenomenal movie. And shout out to Paul B, who chose this as his number one. I agree, it's fantastic. Quick movie leftovers before we get out of here. Movies that I watched that did not make my list, just so you know what else I watched here. Bloodstream, Creature, The Doctor and the Devils, Night Train to Terror, Massacre in Dinosaur Valley, Evils of the Night, Future Kill, Chiller, Too Scared to Scream, Howling 2, Ghoulies, Blood Tracks, Covenant, Amazon, I think it's called Cannibal Holocaust Part 2 also. I already talked about that. So yeah, those are some movies that I watched also. So there you go. That is my top 10. What is your top 10? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.